Welcome to Amplify, highlighting the good across Polk County schools and amplifying the voices, stories, and people who make our district shine. I'm your host, Tanya Ramirez from Teacher Engagement. Today, we're getting amplified with Daniel Desimone. Today, we're amplifying what it means to be an amazing coach. And when I was looking for the perfect guest, Mr. Desimone's name came up by both colleagues and students alike. He truly exemplifies what it means to be a coach in Polk County Public Schools, and I'm so excited to have him here today to talk with us. Hey, Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, so this is my sixth year with Polk County Public Schools. This is my second year as a coach, and super really excited to be here.
Awesome, great. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. And can you tell me what your role at Davenport High School looks like as a math coach? What is your typical week?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny in this job. I don't know if there is a typical week because you could have a plan and plans change very quickly in this type of role, right? But I would say anything from classroom support, co-teaching, modeling lessons, a lot of planning, data analysis. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my job is to help students succeed. So whether you're in the classroom as a teacher, out of the classroom as a coach, the number one goal that we all have is to make our students great.
Awesome. I love that. What's something that people might be surprised to learn about your job that maybe we don't see?
I think the funniest thing about this job is that anytime I tell somebody who's not in education that I'm a math coach, right? They assume that I'm like coaching a group of students on like a math team, that there's like a math competition. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably the funniest thing. But I think many people don't realize how much time like you spend in classrooms in this role. Like most of our job is in the classroom supporting teachers, supporting kids. So it's not really much different than being a classroom teacher. But you probably just need to have a little bit more of the conceptual end of education, not just the technical skills. Like, of course, if you could do math, awesome, but just being able to do the math won't necessarily mean that you'll be a great coach.
Yeah, that's good. That's a valid point. How do you know that what you're doing is actually making a difference? Because like, you don't necessarily have your own classroom, but
Sure.
you did say you get in there with the students. So how do you notice? Do you notice it more with the teachers or the students that you're making that difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say both. Like you could tell when a teacher goes from point A to point B. We get a lot of new first year teachers. So like, as you know, we run the PEC program here in Polk County for a lot of teachers who are non-education majors who need to get certified. So like working with those teachers through that process is always a gift. But then like when you get into student data, so our principal here, Dr. Kish, is awesome and she's very big on data. And what students are you working with? So when we could track those students, right, as well when we're pushing into classrooms and working with them and we see their data grow, it's awesome, but it's more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. I love Excel. It's one of my favorite things ever. But it's also just building those relationships and seeing where someone is in August when they come in, seeing how they grow as a person, whether it's a teacher or a student, seeing how they grow as a leader, whether it's a teacher or a student. You can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah. And I like that. I love looking at the data too, but sometimes you look at it and you're like, oh, great, 80% proficient, but that means 20%. There's a child in there that's not, and so I like that you mentioned that. How do you find yourself, like, do you still find that you're learning and growing in the role? Is there, do you feel like you've already mastered it, or is there days that you learn stuff or?
Yeah, I think the day I'm not learning and growing is probably the day I need to retire from education, right? That's the biggest blessing of being in this role is that I learn something new every day. I go into a classroom and I can learn a new method on how to solve a problem. I could go into a classroom and learn about how to reach a kid who maybe it has been difficult to reach, right? So you're always growing in this role. We're always doing, the district is fantastic about providing us with awesome professional development opportunities that if you take full advantage of, you're absolutely going to learn. But on top of that, like it's just you learn from just interacting with people. Every teacher you support is different. Every student you support is different. So you're always putting new strategies into your toolbox to help make our students successful.
Now you said that all teachers are different. Do you ever come across a teacher that you see needs some type of support and you try to support them and they say, no, I'm good? And
Yeah.
how would you handle something like that?
Yeah, so I would say nobody has. I've not luckily had a situation in my 2 years as a coach where somebody's been like, "Nope, I don't want your help." So I'm very blessed in that regard. But ultimately, like, yeah, you have to approach certain teachers differently. Certain teachers need like an arm around them at all times and be like, "Hey, you're doing a great job." Other teachers might need more direct feedback, and they might want more direct feedback. Other teachers, if you give them too direct feedback, they don't love that. So you have to just learn your team and build those relationships, and really ask questions. If you ask a teacher, like, what do you want to work on, instead of going into their classroom and being like, you need to work on this and you need to work on this. But if you make it collaborative, if everything's collaborative, if they have a say on what they want to improve at, you will always end up in a better place, than if you just go in there, and tell them what to do. So
Yeah,
I've
for
learned to
sure.
just ask good questions.
I like that. I like collaborating with them, making them feel like they have, a stake in the game and they have a say in what they, want to learn.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like I said, the constant theme is we're here for our students to succeed. And so if our teachers are successful, if they're feeling great about their job, if they're feeling like, I just slayed that lesson, because we had a great, week of preparation and collaborative planning, and then they come in and they're able to teach effectively, like, that is what it's all about. It's all about making our kids learn and be successful.
Yeah. Now, do you ever come across, yeah, I know you said you have some great teachers. Has there ever been some like burnout where they are just kind of going through the motions and maybe that you're noticing in that data that the kids are not as engaged? Do you ever have to have those conversations?
Yeah, yeah, all the time. Unfortunately, teaching is a career field where I always say that teaching, it's not a type of job where it's like, if I worked sales before I was in education, right? So sales was not like who I was. This is the type of job where like it's very personal. Like teaching is who I am. It's a part of my identity, and that's why I think I've been successful in this field. But it's the same for all of our teachers. Like it's not something that you could just turn on and off. So like if your kids, if you have a tough class, some of the classes can be tougher than others, right? So if you have a tough class and their data is not where it is, or they're not learning, as much as you'd hope that they would, or maybe at the pace that you hope they would, there's times where that can lead to burnout. And so it's just important to understand that, like, just like when we're interacting with students, you never know what teachers are also dealing with. You have teachers that are dealing with um, tough things at home. They might have a parent who's sick, or a child who's sick, like things like that are just pretty heavy and tough to deal with. So, you could always, talk with them and have those open and honest conversations, about burnout and just about life. Give them resources that we have here in Polk County, like our EAP, that, offers counseling sessions to teachers who might need it. And then just, let them advise them, like, you have 6 personal days that you could use every year. Don't be afraid to use those. Those are collectively bargained and given to us for a reason, right? So, utilize your time. If you need to take a Friday or a Monday to just get your head right, do it. And I wish that more career fields would be that way, because I think it would really help people and their mental health and whatnot in this, in our nation as a whole. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we want teachers to feel like the work they're doing, that it matters, because it does. It's critical. Without us, we wouldn't have a future in this country. It'd be a lot grimmer, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, what excites you about where math is headed? Like as a coach, you must be seeing like new strategies or different ways that we're engaging students, maybe digitally, things like that. Is there anything that you've noticed new this year or upcoming that you're getting excited about?
Yeah, I think math is the one field that will always be here, but I think the way we implement it has changed, right? I think, when I was a kid, I'm 30 years old now, so I'm not like super duper old. I feel old around these kids sometimes. I got a wife and a kid now, so like that sometimes makes me feel old. But at the end of the day, like when I was a kid in school 20 years ago, they're like, you're not gonna have a calculator in your pocket all day, every day. The reality is, yes, we do. We have a supercomputer in our pocket all day, every day. And I really like to be, I'll be a little controversial here and say that I think as math instruction over the next decade is going to have to learn how to embrace AI. Um, AI is like Thanos; it's inevitable. Unfortunately, I think we're all going to miss a world where AI wasn't here. But at the end of the day, I think we need to learn how to implement those strategies in our classroom to still apply it to math. Just like computer science, they say a lot of things now, like everyone is now a coder. You could code online now. But I think that I would argue that with AI, everybody's now a mathematician as well. So learning and teaching students how to use the tools that are available to them is going to be how we keep education relevant, because my biggest fear is that if we don't do that, kids are just going to learn, I could just take a picture of this, put it into chat GPT, and it'll solve everything for me. And when education, if education gets to that point, that's going to be a really sad day for humanity, because we're going to stop learning. But if we learn how to work with things together, to work with AI together, and use it to sharpen our skills, I think that will really be beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then what advice would you give somebody thinking about wanting to try to be a math coach? Is there, does it take a special type of person to want to do it? I know you said it's more than just knowing how to do math. So what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say that like that's actually a very small part of the job is knowing how to do math, because it's my 6th year in education and I've only really taught math. So like I've got the math pretty ingrained in me, but I feel like most of your job, you're working with instructional strategies, you're managing people. We got 20 math teachers at Davenport High School, 20 different personalities that you work with every day, and it's all about putting those people in a position to succeed. So I really think you need conceptual knowledge, and specifically like how to organize like an organization, for lack of a better term. Like you need to, be mindful when you're working with your principal and your assistant principals, like where are we going to put teachers? What subject area will they be most successful in? Those are conversations that we have all the time, because we want our teachers to be successful, because when our teachers are successful, our students are successful, as I've said a million times. But so I would argue you need really good organizational knowledge. And then you also, like, you really need to know your teachers. So you can't just be in your office all day. You got to be in the classrooms and knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are to help them.
Definitely. Well, it was great talking with you today. Before we wrap it up, I just have one last question to ask you. I want to ask all my guests this just for fun. What was your favorite cartoon growing up?
I was a SpongeBob kid growing up. All
Oh,
day,
all
every day. So
right.
I love the memes. I feel like this new generation of kids will only know SpongeBob as the memes, but
Yes.
I was like an OG. There's some episodes of SpongeBob that I'll still watch that'll just make me laugh my head off. So I love that show.
Yeah. My girls just went and saw the movie right before Christmas. So yeah, they're
Oh,
still seeing
there's
it.
a new
Yeah,
movie?
there's a new movie that came out.
I didn't even know it was still on TV. That's kind of funny,
Yeah.
but well, that's great news to hear that, because I have a 6-month-old, so I'm excited
Oh,
to
yeah.
relive
Yes.
those
They're keeping it
memories with
alive.
him. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. And thank you for listening to Amplify. Keep amplifying the good. Until next time, I'm Tanya Ramirez. Thank you.